since everybody liked my Hotaling video so much, I'm going to take a walk down the street because this street is really special. It has a special sidewalk. It's a one-block street in downtown San Francisco in the shadow of the Transamerica building, which is on the side of the Montgomery Block, which you keep hearing me talk about. So maybe one day I'll make a video where I go in depth about the Montgomery Block. So these buildings in the back are a couple of those buildings that I showed from the front that are from like the 1850s. I think this brick building right here, I'm pretty sure, although I might be making it up. I know I'm not making it up that there are buildings from the 1850s. Anyway, this is Hotaling. So the whole story is that this is basically where the freshwater creek was. I don't know where it came down from, maybe from Telegraph Hill, Russian Hill or something. But this is where, at the bay shore, this was a freshwater creek that was running into the bay. So the very first guys that were settling in the Yerba Buena Cove area, Leidesdorf, Richardson, Jacob Leese, all the first people that established commerce in the Yerba Buena Cove used this for their freshwater source. And here we have a plaque on the Hotaling building, built in 1866. So you say to yourself, well, how is it that these buildings, this one right here, it says Hotaling building, built in 1866, blah, 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 et cetera, and the 1906, it survived the 1906 earthquake and fire due to a mile-long fire hose laid from Fisherman's Wharf over, which actually wasn't the present Fisherman's Wharf. It was the Fisherman's Wharf closer down here, around probably like Pier 15-ish. And it says over Telegraph Hill by the U.S. Navy. I don't know. This prompted the famous doggerel by Charles Field. If, as they say, God spanked the town for being over frisky, why did he burn the churches down and save Hotaling's whiskey? If, as they say, God spanked the town for being over frisky, why did he burn the churches down and save Hotaling's whiskey? So the joke there basically is that there was a bunch of warehouses here in this area that were storing booze. There were the booze warehouses. So they were like, by any means necessary, we got to save the booze warehouses. And I think I read somewhere else that basically the shoreline's right here, and they had a Navy ship that was pumping water to fight the fire right here. But that's why you would have a building right here built in 1866 that survived the earthquake and fire, the Hotaling building. And it's got some pretty interesting details. Anyway, these windows are pretty amazing. And I'm trying to zoom out and pan around. I'm panning. So that's a story, as far as I know, about Hotaling. And of course, it's right next to the famous Montgomery Block. Now, that the footprint, the block where the Transamerica building is today. So the story with that is Halleck. Oh gosh, I forget his first name. I gotta read up. But anyway, Halleck was an early businessman here, later a general in the Civil War, and he built the Montgomery Block, which was basically the first real like multi-story office building on the West Coast. I think it was like 4 stories, and the shore right here was pretty mucky, I guess. And so he, the story goes, he took a bunch of redwood pilings, and put them on the ground right below it, and built up this 4-story building that was known as the Montgomery Block, and affectionately known as the Monkey Block. And it had quite a history. First, obviously as a place of business and commerce, and in later years, when it became more defunct, and it was used in the 40s and 50s. It was used by various people for office building space, and for artists. Painters had their studios in there, And so they had their studios in there, and they had these gorgeous models sitting for their paintings. And it just so happened that the county jail, the San Francisco City Jail, was basically across the street over here. I forget the exact location, but the idea is that the inmates in the jail had a perfect view of the models who were sitting for their portraits. I don't know what all these maniacs are doing, but anyway, so it was quite a boon, I guess, if you had a cell with that vantage point, and you could sit in there and check out the young ladies sitting for hours on end, nude, in the nude. So that was kind of an ongoing joke. But in all seriousness, there's a book by Oscar Lewis, and he's a historian who wrote he wrote a survey history of San Francisco, Miwoks to Metropolis, no, something like that. But anyway, Miners to Metropolis, something like that, and which I've read a couple times. I can't even remember the title, apparently. And then he also wrote another book called Bohemian. I can't remember anything right now about San Francisco around the turn of the 20th century, and the Montgomery Block played a huge role in that. There was a big Italian restaurant on the ground floor where all the writers of renown, such as Jack London and Joaquin Miller, who was a poet, would have basically a salon in this Italian restaurant in the Montgomery Block. So it really does have this great significance for the artistic and cultural history, as well as the commercial history of San Francisco. And unfortunately, it was demolished, I guess, in the late 50s, and it was just a parking lot. And then later on, it became the site of the Transamerica building. So I can't really directly blame the Transamerica building on its demise, but just progress, history, and a lack of respect for history in San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco doesn't even have its own history museum. It has like lots of little museums. There's a Bank of California that has a history museum. Wells Fargo Bank has a history museum. The San Francisco Fire Department has a fire department history museum. So there's lots of scattered exhibits, and there's lots of DoorDashers behaving as if they're in Calcutta. And so unfortunately, San Francisco, I mean, in a perfect world, San Francisco would take the Old Mint at 5th and Mission, built in 1855, and saved also in the earthquake and fire of 1906. In a perfect world, San Francisco would take that site, which I think is used by San Francisco history associations from time to time for special events, exhibits, that type of thing regarding San Francisco history, and make that a San Francisco history museum. And we could have, exhibits about the Gold Rush architecture, the Mission period, Chinese community, the all this stuff, the Mexican community, Latino in general, and it would be amazing. It would be so great. But instead, we're just going to have to keep on dealing with insanity and no history museum. Oh boy. And here we are at beautiful Portsmouth Square, where there's always a game. There's always a game on at Portsmouth Square. I always got to stop and check out the action.